And you figured this all out, bless you.
That cute little guy here, this cute one. He's walking in, and I'm like, oh gosh, this guy's so cute. And turns out he could be my son. But anyway, he helped and it was so nice.
There's some truth in what you said.
And then you're like, oh, you're right.
I didn't even ask. I don't wanna know.
The sound is working on my end. It really is true how crazy Florida is.
I think some things are gonna change. I think people are getting. Right now. Big difference. Oh, absolutely. And I see that, and I see that in our students.
As an practitioner.
He's like, is your mic on?
It's supposed to be.
Okay.
Yeah, I.
Ready to roll?
Being that you hear it.
Are we ready?
This meeting is being recorded.
Good morning, everyone. Now, is this Michigan? Where's my good morning back? Thank you, thank you. And it is a good morning, maybe a little light on the fall side, but that's okay. In January, we'll be thrilled. So good morning, and all of you, welcome to the 7th annual Margaret Calarco Leadership Lectureship Meeting. I'm Patricia Hearn, the Dean of the University School of Nursing, who hasn't really, if anybody hasn't had a chance to meet me. And it's really a joy to see so many of you here in person and everyone online to be able to work through and to listen and to learn today. Everyone that is here, and I want to define that a bit for us, here in the Danto Auditorium, in the School of Nursing Lecture Hall, and then joining virtually from across the country. And that is no exaggeration. So thanks to this hybrid format, we are joined today by nursing students and faculty, alumni near and far, and I do mean that, and nursing leaders and staff from throughout Michigan medicine and beyond. This truly reflects the community that Dr. Calarco envisioned when this lectureship was created, and later she will tell us a bit about that herself. The lectureship honors her 18 years of service as a chief nurse executive at Michigan Medicine and her lifelong dedication to nursing leadership and to scholarship. Its mission is to highlight and advance leadership, the very area that defined her career and her scholarship. For the past 6 years, the School of Nursing and Nursing at Michigan Medicine have proudly co-sponsored this event, underscoring our strong and so fortunately enduring partnership. I extend my gratitude to the Calarco Planning Committee and their thoughtful work in bringing this entire gathering to life once again. Now, before we begin, there's some housekeeping things that are important, so let me go through those. Virtual attendees, let me ask you to type your questions in the Q&A box. The lecture hall of the School of Nursing and Danto Auditorium attendees, please raise your hand if you have a question and we will bring you a microphone. If you're in the Danto Auditorium, I believe you may have mics right in front of you. So there won't be any difficulty to be able to capture that, and everybody in our community will be able to hear each other. Now, a CE credit, which is always important. First of all, this is 1 credit hour. So let's be aware of that. Now you need to sign in, attend the full session, and then you have to complete the Qualtrics evaluation. So whether you're here in the School of Nursing or online, please do scan the QR code that appears on the screen so that you can sign in. The evaluation link will be emailed to you in the coming days, and our speaker has generously agreed that her slides will be emailed to you as well. So no need to be dashing down the words. We can enjoy her as well as what she has to say. So, and now it is my very distinct pleasure to introduce today's speaker, University of Michigan alumna, Dr. Carrie Schuling. Dr. Schuling is currently a distinguished professor at Northern Michigan University, located in Marquette, Michigan. Most recently, she has completed a term as the president of the university, following 7 years as provost and vice president of academic affairs. And I can tell you from firsthand experience, those leadership things are absolutely huge to the community. And she fills those shoes so wonderfully. She was certified as a nurse midwife and women's health nurse practitioner until this year, meaning 2025, when she semi-retired. I'll let her explain that. I'm not so sure I believe that, but in any event. Dr. Schuling has received several awards for her work in academia and practice, including the Award for Outstanding Scholarship, Distinguished Professor, and the Academy of Nurse Midwifery Kitty Ernst Award for Innovative Creative Endeavors in Midwifery and Women's Health. She is a fellow of the American Academy of Nursing. In 2013, she was named one of the esteemed women of Michigan for making extraordinary contributions from personal, volunteer, and professional avenues to improve the community and to inspire others in the state of Michigan, because that's ultimately a huge gift. In 2015, she received the Distinguished Service to Society Award from Frontier Nursing University. And in 2019, she was a Michigan State Crane's Notable Women in Education Leadership awardee, recognizing her career accomplishments, her contribution to her community, and her mentorship of others. She is co-editor of the book Women's Gynecological Health, which twice received the Book of the Year award from the American Academy of Nurse Midwifery and received an American Journal of Nursing award. The text is in its 4th edition. Dr. Schuling is a founding co-editor of the International Journal of Childbirth, which for a number of years was the official journal of the International Confederation of Midwives. She has received awards of more than $4 million in funding for development of educational programs and research. She received her bachelor's degree in nursing from Northern Michigan University, her master's degree in nursing from Wayne State University, and a certificate in nurse midwifery from Frontier Nursing University. Now, here's the important part. She holds a PhD in nursing and graduate certificate in women's health from the University of Michigan. I thank you and go blue. Please join me in welcoming Dr. Schuling.
There, I think I'm on, right? Well, thank you very much for that introduction. All that really just means I'm old. I've lived a long time. I'm going to talk about serendipity and how it played a big part in my own career trajectory and how it played a very significant part in my role as a leader. So I'm going to provide an overview of my career first and how serendipity every once in a while just would raise its head, and I took the opportunity. I was lucky. I also confess that my bias in career as a nurse midwife will be evident throughout my talk, and I will give you no apologies for that. So here I am. I didn't really have a career path. My career path, my goals when I went to school to get a BSN at Northern was what, to graduate, take my boards and pass them, and never, ever, ever take another test. I guess I was wrong. So in my unplanned career, I went from a labor and delivery staff nurse, nurse practitioner, nurse midwife, dean of a school of nursing, and then dean of a college of health sciences, then became a provost and went on to become a president. And during this time, I also was known as a nurse researcher and a co-editor of an international journal and a textbook. I'm now transitioning into retirement, I think. But as I told someone earlier, my children moved and had the audacity to take my grandchildren with them. So I don't always have a lot to do, and I enjoy what I do. Early signs of an emerging leader are those individuals who ask why, or they might do things a little differently. They know it's not going to harm the patient, but, can we change this? Why are we doing what we're doing? So in my early career as labor and delivery staff nurse, now remember, this is way, I say back when God was a boy, this is the time of the infamous shave and a prep. You came into labor and you got a shave, perineum, and you got an enema. Well, I was that new nurse who, oh gosh, I forgot to shave her. Now it's too late to do the enema. The other part that I would do is once they would have, they would be moved from the laboring room to the delivery room, sheets put over them, and they actually had their wrists restrained in leather straps so that she couldn't move her. And I was the one who would sneak under the sheets and let her wrist go, because it just didn't make any sense to me. So when they would ask me, and then I'd say, but why are you restraining them? I mean, she's going to hold her baby afterwards anyway, really. But the important thing that happened during this time, I'll set my timer here. The important thing that happened during that time was we had a patient who came in, had a wonderful labor and birth, and she had the audacity to put street clothes on afterwards. Can you imagine? She was the talk of the whole unit. She talked to me about midwives and I was hooked. She had looked for a midwife to have her birth with, but there weren't any in the area. But I was absolutely hooked and began reading everything I could. So entering academia, I think it was during my third year when I was practicing as a staff nurse, one of my instructors from maternity nursing called, and she had just become head of an associate degree program that was associated with the university. And she asked me if I would be willing to teach maternity nursing for them. Well, I thought that was a great opportunity to show students the way I thought maternity care should be done. So that was pretty exciting, and I started doing that. And then after a few years of teaching, I again had the opportunity to go to nurse practitioner school. This was through Planned Parenthood. So that was in the day of the women's health nurse practitioner, it was family planning nurse practitioner. It was a 3-month program. There were no certifications at the time, and I became the third nurse practitioner on the western side of the state. For me, that was always a way to kind of, can I get to midwifery school somehow? Because there just weren't any opportunities for me. Later on, they added a month extra so you could actually do prenatal care as a nurse practitioner. Still no certification exam, still no master's degree. I didn't take advantage of that because by then I was already in a master's program at Wayne studying advanced maternity nursing. It wasn't until the 1980s when certification became available. So I can give you all relief, and I did pass that certification exam. Serendipity played a huge role in my ability to become a nurse midwife. I had applied to a lot of programs, but when I was applying, it was the malpractice crisis. So a lot of programs were shutting down. And they would admit you and then they say, nope, we have to wait. It's a malpractice crisis. So, you would kind of go back and forth. Well, I also was teaching childbirth classes at the time. And I was looking through Childbirth Graphics, which was a catalog for tools that you could use to teach the class. And there was this tiny little ad, I swear it was not bigger than that. And it was the community-based nurse midwifery education program, better known as CNEP, which is now known as Frontier Nursing University. And it was the opportunity to study midwifery at a distance. I couldn't believe it. Was it true? I called. I was in practice with a group of physicians. They gave me the go-ahead. And that was really important because when I got done, I wanted to come back and have a job. And there were no nurse practitioners in that side of the state at the time. And there never used to be called Butterworth. It's called Corewell Health in Grand Rapids now, had no nurse midwives at all. So I will again reassure you, we did not learn how to catch babies at a distance. I actually went to Battle Creek and worked with midwives there. Even had the audacity to tell the physicians I worked with that they could possibly show me how to catch a baby because I needed the midwifery philosophy. It's another sign of an emerging leader, speak your truth. So I practiced as CNM. I was certified in 91. I practiced in private practice in Grand Rapids, Michigan. And then I did group practice. I practiced in Boulder, Colorado, where I became the first private practice midwife. At the time when I was in Boulder, the only way that you could see a midwife is if you had no money. So by this time, I had a BSN, I had an MSN, and 2 advanced practice certifications. So why would I get a PhD? This is what I thought about a PhD. Really? I like this cartoon because it's like, before grad school, you talk to your friends, you tell them a joke, they all laugh, they just think it's hilarious. After graduate school, you tell a joke and everybody's like, what the heck is she talking about? So how did I end up doing that? Something I swore I never, ever, ever would do. Well, if you're in practice long enough, and you have to realize by now I'm in practice 20 plus years, you ask a lot of questions. And I was working in a midwifery practice that directly collaborated with maternal fetal medicine. And that was kind of unusual. We weren't collaborating directly with general SOBs. And so I was wondering, how does this work? Are we cost efficient? Are the outcomes good? So I had a good friend, serendipity again, who worked at Grand Valley State University, who was a nurse researcher, and she helped me set up and design a research project, which we did. It was very, very exciting, or at least I thought it was, and the outcomes were what you always hope they will be, so that gives you a rev up about research. And so the next time I approached her to do another project, she said, you need to go get a PhD. You need to learn how to do research. Well, serendipity was at work again because the University of Michigan had just opened a PhD track in women's health. I applied. I was very fortunate to get in, and the rest is history. So Lisa K. Lowe was one of my colleagues in that program. I'll tell you, between her and Julia Sang, I feel very fortunate because I'm not sure I would have been able to finish had I not had their support. So was it luck or was it serendipity? Honestly, I think it was both. So then, right after I graduated with my doctorate, the American College of Nurse Midwife was looking for their first ever nurse researcher. So, and it was a part-time position. It was a good way, to use the training and education that I had received. And so again, serendipitous. I called, I applied, I got the job. It was really wonderful. I was able to do the research that provided a lot of data for the workforce for midwifery. And later on in my career, I became very involved with the International Confederation of Midwives. And here I am sitting next to this person who says, you have your PhD, don't you? Yes. And she said, the Research Standing Committee is looking for a chair. Would you be the chair? Serendipity at work again. I chaired the research committee at the ICM for 9 years. It was a wonderful experience doing global research on childbirth and family and things like that. So by this time, I became into administration really by accident. There it is, serendipity again. Well, when I was on the faculty at Northern by this time and in the School of Nursing, and the dean came and said to me, we want, the previous department head had just decided to retire. And she said, I really want you to be the department head, direct the school. And I politely told her no. And then colleagues said, you don't have tenure yet. You don't tell the dean no. So honestly, I just come from private practice. I had no idea what tenure even meant, but I believed my colleague and it was good advice. So although I did not apply for the role, here I was again, doing something that I really hadn't anticipated that I would be doing and looking much younger, as you can see. During my tenure as leader of the School of Nursing at Northern, one of my major accomplishments was making the doctorate the terminal degree in nursing. So Northern Michigan University is in the Upper Peninsula, 8 hours from here, and a good 8 hours from any place anybody could have gone to get a PhD or other kind of doctorate, education or whatever. Some of the faculty had gone on and gotten a EDD, which was helpful, but our terminal degree in our department was the master's, which I felt really hindered us when we're working with other colleagues in other disciplines. And I used to say, they pretend that they're listening, but they are really not. And so the more we thought about it, this was the same time that AACN started, talking more and more about the DNP. And for us, I thought that sounded like that could work because our master's degree was advanced practice. And those who were interested, those faculty who might have been interested, would given us a good ratio of research doctorates to practice doctorates, et cetera. So what happened, again, serendipitous. This is the time we had a state chief nurse, if you'll remember, Jeanette Klemchek. It was fabulous to have her on board. The then dean at Oakland University, Linda Thompson, and I were having a conversation because we had a mutual friend, Joyce Fitzpatrick, who introduced us. Linda had come up with the idea and curriculum for a DNP. We brought both our faculty together at a golf course in the wintertime in mid-Michigan. Linda gets out of her car in her big high heels. Of course, we all mucklucks on from the north. Faculty just loved the idea. So we put together the idea. We did a proposal. We presented it to Jeanette Klemchek, and she gave us $1.9 million to do a collaborative DNP. And it really was collaborative. We were able to use faculty from Northern and faculty from Oakland. It didn't cost us a cent more in faculty, and both schools were very in tune with it. The ultimate degree came from Oakland, but credit was, there was reciprocity with credit. It was great. So what I say is, in making new leaders is also the fact, if you're going to require something of the people that you work with, give them a path and an ability to get the work done or reach the goal that you put before them. So who, me, an editor? After running a school of nursing as the director, and then, by now I've kind of accepted the fact that I really kind of like this leadership role. It's fun to problem solve. I then, began to think about writing. And what I was doing when I was at the ICM, I was having conversation with Sue Down and Dennis Walsh, who also was a CNM from the UK. And the International Confederation did not have its own journal. Sue Down is well known for doing the Normal Labor and Birth Conference, which is a fabulous conference, international. So we talked about having a journal of our own. And I was asked if I would co-edit it along with Dennis Walsh. Now, I will also tell you, serendipity can really work in your favor, because I got the call from them asking to be co-editor 1 week after my own journal turned me down to be an associate editor on their board. I was deeply hurt. And then I got this offer, not only to be an associate editor, be the co-editor of an international journal. So you never know, something better will come along. You just have to be patient. Then, and the book is now called Gynecologic Healthcare. I taught a course for Frontier on women's health, and I was really frustrated about always running into the terminology that was used. It pathologized women's normal physiologic functions. I really couldn't use a book. I was constantly looking through research. And at the time, I was also working with Francie Likas, who also was a nurse practitioner first before she was a women's health. Well, what we decided, and of course, I had this women's certificate from, University of Michigan. This just won't do. We need our own book. So naivety, Francie and I go off and we wrote a textbook. And it was daunting and it was interesting, and we learned a lot. I learned how expensive illustrators can be. The first book, I really wanted to have an illustrator, and I talked to a professional illustrator and they told me how much it would cost and how much the ongoing fees would be. I was floored, but we knew we had to have an illustrator. So my mother, who's a watercolorist, beautiful, this is a secret, not very few people know, did the first illustrations for our first book. And I'll also tell you, the first time we published, the first year we published, we owed the publisher $500. It is one of my proudest achievements, though. 20 years later, 4 editions, we now, Francie and I both have retired from being co-editors, and new co-editors have the book, and it should be coming out next year. So now it was time to think about moving on. I became the provost after doing the dean of the College of Health Sciences. And part of what I really was enjoying was how much collaboration and working together with all these disciplines. It was really a fabulous experience. Then what happened was the president stepped out and went back to faculty, and the board asked me to become the interim president. So I did, even though I was on my way to retirement by then. And then very much surprised me at a board meeting when they said they were taking the interim title off, which I very graciously told them, thank you. And then when nobody was around, I said, you still need to be searching for a president. Leading and leadership, personal observation. First time I was referred to as a leader, I looked around because I really didn't know who they were talking to. And quite honestly, the same thing happened when Shakay Katafian referred to me as a member of a scholarly community. Me? So you don't always see it in yourself, but you'll see it in others. There's a lot of definitions of leadership, and this is one of my favorite because it encompasses setting a clear vision, motivating others, and making effective decisions. And key, taking responsibility for the decisions that you make. I'm going to transition now to talk about effective leaders and effective leadership. Effective leaders influence and they motivate. They inspire individuals to work together and to contribute their best efforts. They provide guidance and support. They provide resources to get to the goal. That is very key. Effective leaders have great vision and strategy. In fact, they will talk about vision like it was something that happened in the past. They're good at decision making and they take responsibility and the consequences for the decisions they make. They are adaptable and they are resilient. Effective leadership involves goal achievement. Make sure, there's identification and clarification of the purpose and the goals. Ethical conduct is core, and it's a social process. Leadership is not solely about individual traits. It's a dynamic social process where individuals influence each other and work together to achieve common goals. Of course, there are a lot of theories about research. So here's just a few, and I'll go through these quickly. There's the great man theory, leaders are born with innate qualities, or they have specific traits that have been identified, or specific behavior. There's contingency theories where a leader does certain things at certain times, and then the serendipity of leadership. I'm going to talk about leadership styles. There's a lot of them, and I'm going to be brief with this. I'm sure you've heard of a lot of them, but I would say that no best leadership style applies in all situations. What I found very, very interesting in my reading was that the belief in leadership is really an entity, one that is deeply rooted. We believe in good leadership, and yet it's been very difficult to find a confirmed link between leadership and organizational achievement. So do we need good leaders, or do we have a lot of good leaders? Maybe that's a research project. Transformational leadership. I gave you some examples of individuals there. Sorry. The components are things like they're charismatic, they're inspirational, there's increased employee engagement. Some of the drawbacks, there's potential for over-reliance on the leader's charisma, and there can be abuse of power. Good examples that I found were Steve Jobs. Think about Apple computers and where they are today. Jeff Bezos, Amazon, although I think his wife helped a lot with that, just saying. And then Martin Luther King. Love is mankind's most potent weapon for personal and social transformation. Transactional leadership focuses on structured tasks, clear roles, and using rewards and penalties. The benefits are very clear expectations, but the drawbacks are it limits creativity and innovation. So examples are military leaders. Bill Gates was also well known as this type of leader, especially in the early days of Microsoft. He often used a reward and punishment system to motivate his employees. Servant leadership is one that I think we hear a lot about today, at least I hear a lot about it. Places primary emphasis on well-being and development of those that work and are being served. It enhances collaboration and teamwork. Some of the drawbacks that it's a very time-consuming and resource-consuming style, and there is potential for burnout. Two examples, Howard Schultz, because of the way he was brought up, he recognized the importance of having healthcare, and he was one of the first of a very successful company to come out and say, I'm giving everybody healthcare, even those of you who work for me part-time. And he has now stepped out and partnered with various universities to give his employees opportunities to go back to school. Another one is Melinda Gates. She's a big advocate for women and children's rights and beliefs, and she identifies gratitude as a form of leadership versus power and control. She highlights appreciation and kindness. Situational leadership, you have to adapt to the situation. improves communication and performance, but you really have to have good diagnostic skills. And right away, you think of sports coaches for that. Autocratic leadership, I have a great example there. This leader maintains control. They make all the decisions. There's minimal input from anybody they work with. The benefit is really to the leader because you have complete control. But the drawback is it stifles creativity and innovation. Democratic leadership, multiple people participate, greater innovation and productivity, but it can be more expensive. It's a top-down style. It can be less efficient. Nelson Mandela is known for his role in ending apartheid in South Africa and his focus on reconciliation and unity. Laissez-faire leadership, best known for that. Warren Buffett and Oprah Winfrey. This is where you really trust your employees. You let them go. You encourage personal growth. It promotes a lot of creativity and innovation, but it can be very difficult to use in a crisis situation. I think most leaders kind of go back and forth depending on what's going on. You kind of pick from each one. So now we'll get into serendipity leadership, was really the focus of my talk. So in the last 5 years or so, particularly in management effectiveness and business practices, serendipity has become recognized as a leadership style. What does that mean? Well, that means we've done research, we've got a theory, we've got some published papers. It's really probably always been around, and I think you probably always all realize that. Certainly it's always been around for me. So when I was asked to do this talk, I'll be honest, I thought, what do I know about leadership? And I was worried it was gonna be boring. I mean, a lot of you have a lot more experience than I do, and there's a lot of you that are probably a whole lot smarter. So I really scratched my head. And you can only imagine, here I am, U of M, PhD graduate. I did what we all do. I went to the journal. So you can imagine my relief when I found out there actually is a theory and some concrete evidence for my style. That's tongue in cheek. So what is serendipity leadership? It is used in, like it mentions, business practice. And I think the key word here is sagacity. You have these unexpected surprises that happen, but you have the insight or the foresight or the discernment that this could be important. This might be a good thing. Can I use this? My favorite definition of leadership is from a person called Peter Mendeno, who is a PhD out of New Zealand. He says, serendipity is the spark of magic caused by simple chance, a moment in time that cannot be foreseen. It is more than luck or a simple fluke. Serendipity combines chance with acquired knowledge. It's an accident that creates opportunity. We need accidents to happen. Stop and think about COVID and all the innovation that occurred during COVID. Now, I'm not saying we need COVID to happen again, please, but think about what happened that really forced us. So there are different types of serendipity. Well, Polian really just, you're relying on a combination of chance and a prepared mind. The discovery you're making wasn't exactly the one you were looking for. A good example of that is how penicillin was discovered. Alexander Fleming just happened to know that a mold was inhibited with this penicillin, inhibited the growth of this mold, and that was a total accident. Same thing for Viagra. Viagra was a treatment for angina. And later on, they found out that it had the side effect of treating erectile dysfunction. Post-it notes was another one. That was supposed to be a real strong adhesive. And he just actually, Spencer Silver was his name. He called it the solution without a problem because while he was trying to invent this really strong adhesive, he found this tacky paper that you could use kind of over and over again. So Mertonian is the key here is recognizing the significance or potential of an unexpected finding. An example of that is the microwave oven, where a chocolate bar was next to a radar tube and it melted. Now, see, if I'd been the researcher, the chocolate bar would not have been sitting there. But that's how microwave ovens were found. Bushian is discovering a solution to a problem, but the research was undirected or untargeted. My own example of how I came into midwifery is a good example of that. When I was looking through that catalog, I sure as heck was not looking for a way to go to school, but I found it. Steffian is also rather like finding a puzzle piece, but you're working on this puzzle and it doesn't fit anywhere, but you decide you're going to hang on to it. Who knows? Or maybe like a key. And later on, you find out it opens the door. That's how Teflon was discovered. Did that? Yeah. So, isn't that great? This is called Walk and Wine. And if you remember, I talked about Peter Mendeno. What he did, because you want to create an environment for serendipity to happen. So Walk and Wine is a stand-up meet and greet for professionals from all kinds of fields. You eat jumbo shrimp, and you drink wine, and you have meaningful conversations and come up with different ideas. Walk and Wine is now in more than 11 global locations. And of course, it's evolved into a PhD study. I immediately searched because I thought certainly Ann Arbor would have a Walk and Wine. Well, I didn't find one. Maybe we have one. I don't know about it, but I suspect we have other places that serve a similar purpose. Here are some key aspects of serendipitous leadership. It's not just about luck. It's developing a mindset that is receptive to unexpected opportunities. You have to encourage your team to be curious and to ask questions and explore new ideas. You have to be, if you're the leader of a team and you're trying to encourage them to use serendipity, you have to expect you're going to get a barrage of questions. They're not questioning how well you're doing. They want to know more, ask more. You have to facilitate and function, encourage the cross-functional collaboration, networking, and diverse interactions. That's really key in many places. Learning from the unexpected is you analyze both successful and unsuccessful experiences, and you learn from them, and then you adapt your strategies accordingly. Cultivating serendipity or creating an environment conducive to serendipity, you have to remember serendipity works only by freeing, association. If I say, I want you to be innovative and I want it by 10 o'clock, that's not going to work. Think about when you take the nice walks and your mind is free to think about you have these aha moments, an epiphany of a sort. Serendipity works best when we disengage our conventional thinking. Think and rethink again. Let go of your common assumptions. And a good example of that is the myth about the frog and the hot water. You drop a frog in boiling water, it'll jump out. But if you put the frog in cool water and slowly heat it, the frog will sit there until it'll die. Well, that's not true. When the water gets hot, the frog jumps out. So common assumptions. First, ask yourself, what are my common assumptions about this situation? What do I believe? And then think again and let go of those. It's best when we feel free to take risks. We rely on convention in fearful adversary situations, and we need to better support risk-taking. Serendipity works best when we're relaxed, like I mentioned, taking a walk, and you allow time for being creative and clues to emerge naturally. I do remember one time, Lisa and I were walking by Angel Hall. Now, I don't mean to be pejorative at all here, but there was a very famous philosopher with his feet up on the desk, and he's kind of like this, and I said, he's probably working right now, right? So I'm going to give you some examples of my own where serendipity was used. So one of the things that Northern is internationally known for is our medicinal plant chemistry program. We had a chemistry professor who came in and he wanted a $300,000 piece of equipment. I didn't have that kind of spare money to give him. And so he went off to a conference and he was at one of the breakout sessions and he found out that there was a lot of interest in looking at medicinal plants and what you could do with them and how they could work and doing studies on these. And so then the more he thought about it, he put a proposal together for medicinal plants. Now, at Northern, we did have a discretionary fund where people could give you a proposal for a new, it's supposed to draw students, be different, et cetera. And my associate dean, associate provost brought this proposal into me. Now, Dale used to be a cop, so he's coming from criminal justice. And he's coming into me, the provost, who was a midwife. And he said, would you look at this? It's so well written. It's so good, but I have concerns. So I'm reading it and I'm thinking, this is fantastic. Boy, I really could have used this when I was, using herbs and things in my practice and relying on a compounder, et cetera, et cetera. So I came back and said, this is great. Why would we not fund this? He said, Carrie, it could be marijuana. So I would reassure you again that we did not use marijuana. We did start the curriculum. It was a wild success. It blew up. We had more enrollment than we knew what to do with. We even got a shout out from Snoop Dogg, if you can believe that, on his website. And very grateful to Snoop Dogg because he, at the end, as he was extolling the virtues, he said, yeah, but man, you got to know, this is truly rigorous chemistry. So beware. So it is important to know no laws were broken. The program is successful. What we did learn is it got too successful too fast, and we had to have outs for people who were, really not up to doing rigorous chemistry. So, which we did. We developed other curricula that we have indoor agriculture, all kinds of things that spun out of that. But this was a very serendipitous, moment that worked quite well. So here's another one, Frost. This is the Forensic Research Outdoor Station. It's our body farm. And those of you who don't know Body Farm, the original one is at the University of Tennessee. And this is where individuals donate their bodies. They're laid outside in the elements and they're studied. They're looked, how does decomposition take place? How long does it take? What's the biome like? How did we come about this? And how did me, this midwife, come up with this idea? Well, when I was 17, a friend of mine was murdered. Her name is Karen Sue Beineman. Some of you may have heard of her. She was one of the co-ed murders. Actually, her murder helped solve the problem. But always in my head, I thought, if they had found the person who did this before this happened to Karen, et cetera. So I had an interest in crime solving. At the time when we were looking at this, the president had asked us again, what could we be doing that would be different? And I was dean of the College of Health Sciences. So one of my good colleagues was department head of criminal justice. So as we talked more and more, one of the things that I talked about having a body farm. Well, what's the unfair advantage that we have up north? Cold, snow, lots of it, Lake Superior. And at that time, there were 7 body farms throughout the United States, none located in cold weather. So we were the first to have a cold weather body farm. And that was fun getting through Senate, as you can imagine, and getting the board's approval. So I'm just going to show you our body farm is located, and we now have a forensic anthropology science curriculum that is associated with this. Michigan State Police use it. Our police academy do a lot of research here. It's a very rigorous set of rules about how you donate. We only take donations. Some are self donations. Some are from the family. We take no unclaimed bodies. There are situations where bodies are never claimed. We will not take any unclaimed bodies. I guess the cake's done. We will, we are very clear with our donors what will happen. And I have to tell you, it is, you really have to pass a lot of okays and approvals before you can even enter into the body farm. It's located next to, we have the federal prison up there, Marquette prison. It's a piece of their property that the state let us buy for $1. Now, it's not prison property anymore, but I'll guarantee you, any of you go wandering up there, you are met with an armed guard. So just saying. It's actually very, very peaceful. But once we have a wonderful director too, Jane, that we grabbed from Western Michigan Medical School. She, when we're looking for the director of this, we said, well, have you ever been to the UP before? And she said, yeah. And she's where? And she said, Engadine. And we were like, Engadine? And we found out she's also a forensic artist. And a young child had been kidnapped in Engadine. And she drew somebody had seen who they thought was the kidnapper, ended up being the kidnapper, and they caught him. So that's how she knew about the UP. So she has great many talents. And one is she's very OCD. So everything is perfectly done how this is run. Once the bodies are decomposed, we have an osteological collection. So the bones are studied too. And this is called FARL, the Forensic Anthropology Research Lab. So the morgue is in the back, and then there's labs in there, and then a conference room, et cetera, that students use. I have to give credit to Joyce DeYoung. She was the director of pathology at Western Michigan Medical School when we started this. And here's serendipity again. She called me out of the blue and she said, hey, I hear you're starting a body farm. I was like, what? How did you even hear about it? Well, of course, she was friends. What I did, and one of the things I will tell you when you're trying to be innovative, take teams, move with teams, take people with you. And the important thing is don't take all of the people who say, yes, this is a great idea. Take people with you who say no, so they can explore and find out. One of the most adamantly opposed to this was our chief of police, Mike Bath. It'll never work. Carrie, I don't have the people who could protect this. There's no way I can secure it. And we were in Grand Junction touring their body farm. And I remember Mike pointed out all the cameras. And their director came over and said, yeah, those are our cameras. Mike goes, see, Carrie? And she goes, oh, yeah, but they don't work. And he said, what? She goes, who wants to break into a body farm? So anyway, you never know what you're going to find out. Well, through all this time, I decided we needed our own innovation center. We're doing some pretty cool things. And so I attended with our graduate dean and the associate provost an academic impressions conference on innovation centers, because they were kind of popping up all over. Garrett Westlake was one of the keynotes. He's fabulous. I highly recommend if you ever get a chance to listen to him. He is now, I think his title is Associate Provost on Entrepreneurship and Innovation at VCU. He helped us get started with our own Innovation Institute, which we call SISU. This is an institute for innovation and transformational education, encouraging the cultivation of ideas leading to relevant and sustainable university services and academic programs. Why do we call it SISU? Because we're primarily Finnish up there. And the name SISU reflects the culture of the UP. To the Finnish people, the word SISU means pressing onward in the face of adversity. This way of life resonates with the people of the Upper Peninsula, and it's the driving force behind SISU. A focus of our institute is supporting faculty and staff, students, and others in developing ideas beyond preconceived limitations. Our director is Bill Dignite. We won a great award at the Trend Hunters Future Festival. Bill is also our theater director and belongs to the Pants of the Month Club. We use a design thinking process. This is a process that is for everybody. It's not linear. You go back and forth. You empathize, you clearly define the problem. You always ask, how might we? And then you come back, you focus on generating a lot of ideas for how you might solve this problem. And then you do a prototype and you test it. If it doesn't work out, you evaluate it and you go back again. I'm going to go through the attributes of, successful leaders. They inspire, they motivate, and they communicate effectively. They listen. Good communication is key. It's critical. I can't emphasize that enough. They appreciate differing personalities and how best to work with different types of people. Equity and fairness is at play. They have integrity. And remember, there's a difference between equity and fairness. It doesn't necessarily mean the same for everyone. And the best example is there's a fence and you want everybody to see over the fence, so you give everybody the same height stool. What happens to the person who's shorter? They might need a taller stool. That's equity and fairness for everybody. Some of the lessons I learned along the way, and this is thanks to Minnie, who wrote me when I transitioned out of administration. I went back and looked at some of their notes. Empathy and grace is critically important. Have confidence in people. Bring trust, stability, transparency, and vulnerability to leadership. Provide others the opportunity to develop as leaders. And try always to leave things on a positive note. Compliment people for their work. Send a thank you note. It really goes a long way. Culture often comes from the top down, so demonstrate poise and insight, especially during the difficult times. Be kind and thoughtful. Be curious, not judgmental. Be generous, open, and reasonable. Heavy doses of humor often help. Part of treating, this is one of my, I say this over and over again, part of treating someone as a professional is paying them as a professional. Give a raise when it's deserved and before the person asks. It's really hard to ask for a raise, and you know when people you're working with deserve a raise. If you're confronting a contemptuous situation, find a way to lower the temperature so that you can have a good conversation. No false promises, but try to lower that temperature. Don't be afraid to make fun of yourself. That in some ways that avoids being boring. One of the things that my associate provost and I did when I was interim president was we had huge fall off at attending convocation. Can you imagine that? And so what we did instead was we changed it up and we made it a breakfast and we sent out this little advertisement that theater help. And Dale had a thing on his head, and a hairnet. He had a hairnet on his head and he's making pancakes and I'm setting tables and stuff. We had a huge turnout. We even gave door prizes. Like you got a parking, we had 5 free parking passes kind of thing. Best attendance ever. The only complaint was more bacon next year. Be present for what matters to others. Attend the play, the lecture, the concert, the game. Don't just go to the things that you're interested in, and be genuine. Remember that we're responsible to people, not for people. Being responsible to people recognizes and values individual agency. It promotes supportive and empowering interactions, while being responsible for people can potentially foster dependence and hinder personal growth. One of the things that one of the physicians that I worked with for many, many years taught me was, Carrie, the longer you practice, you'll come to find there are very few true emergencies in life. And oh, is that true? You go away and you do your email and you come back and there's all these frantic things. I learned to do it backwards because by the time you get to the end, they've solved the problem, right? Use integrity and break through barriers. Provide the kind of trust in people that makes them comfortable in being blunt with you and having difficult conversations. That way, what needs to be said gets said. Some leaders fail because they don't understand the job, they're unable to adjust to it, or they're unwilling to remake themselves based on what the job needs rather than what they want. Some of my members gave me a lot of really good advice. Always volunteer to do the tasks no one else will. And when opportunity knocks, answer the door. Show up, be on time, and always be ready to learn. Follow your passion, even if it seems to take you off track. And remember, you don't have to be sick to get better. Recognize curiosity can lead to unexpected insights. Disruption should be seen as an opportunity. Don't cling to groupthink. Share your contacts. If somebody's helped you, ask them if you can share their contacts so they can help somebody else. Focus on solutions over ideology. So in conclusion, here are things that I have often told people. Say yes. If it's at all possible, say yes. And yes, I know all about work-life balance, but it's individual, and what works for an individual may be different from what works for somebody else. I was a very busy single mom for a long time, but my children knew when I was with them, I was with them. The computer was off, the phone was off, whatever we were doing was together. So however that works for you. But if you can find a way, say yes. Remember, every workplace will have people you don't get along with. Try to find a way to work together and respect their differences. When I first took the provost job, I got a very long email full of complaints from somebody. And I went out and asked my secretary could you make it so we could meet? And everybody thought I was crazy. No, this person does this all the time. We met several times. This person was brilliant, had wonderful ideas. A lot of his concerns were, logical. And he, at that time, was a professor. And I will now tell you, I made him a department head. He's a department head to this day and one of the best we have on campus. Sit down and talk with people, even when they have differing opinions. Support others. This is important. Don't soften the message to the point where it fails to send. You do have to say no sometimes, even when it hurts. My call to action for all of you is I encourage you to reflect on your leadership styles, because I'm sure you're all leaders, and apply some of these concepts that you've learned. So thank you for this invitation today. I'm thrilled to be back at my alma mater. Congratulations to my dear friend, Lisa, for getting the School of Nursing Lifetime Achievement Award. And very importantly, go blue. Thank you.
Yeah. I'm just gonna get this on the screen.
Okay, great. I think we have a few minutes for questions.
Okay,
if you'd like.
sure.
You know what we have in there.
No, yeah, actually, it's not a let's see. This one just wanted to say not a question, but a comment. Thank you for your innovative way of leading. Sorry, I can't see like you.
I can't either, so.
I am proud.
Thank you for your innovative way of leading. I'm proud 1995 NMU BSN grad. There's a fair
All
amount of
right.
them around here as well.
Yeah. Well, we
Um,
graduate great nurses too.
I'm so proud to see NMU expanding and being innovative to enhance learning. Go Wildcats and go Blue. Any questions in the audience? Yes, please.
I just wanted to get your take on recent court findings and legislation in the state of California. Talked on the importance of having nurses who are DNPs and PhDs being recognized in their field, and the stripping of their titles of doctor in the professional arena. How's your take on how things are going in the doctorate world?
Well, last night, I think that's an age, it's probably kind of one of those age-old things. They, for a while, they were trying to outlaw that, but and I remember way back when reading some article about it, but for me, the answer was always, well, we don't outlaw calling somebody a physician, do we? We don't outlaw calling somebody a nurse. So titles are titles. You have a variety of them. For me, that's coming from someplace other than academic concern, I guess is what I would say. I used to love it, the physicians. I remember when I practiced in Boulder, and I have to tell you, it's a fantastic place that, the average age when I practiced in Boulder was 40. My pregnant patients that came to see me, I would get questions like, how long can I rock climb? So they would always have a response to something. But I'll never forget, we had a brand new anesthesiologist who came in and kind of had a, little issue. And he was scrubbing, and one of the nurses was scrubbing, and he said something like, well, Susan, how's your day going? Or something like that, And she said, just fine, John, thank you. So just kind of cleared the air a little bit.
Very good. Thank you so much, Dr. Schilling. We really
Thank you.
appreciate your sharing your insights today. Now, please join me in recognizing the namesake of this lecture series, Dr. Marge Calarco. Marge, would you like to share a few words?
Just a few.
Please.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you, Dr. Schumann. We hadn't met before, but it's clear to me that we are aligned, right? I did not plan my career path either. And what I did, and Dr. Schuling's done, is when faced with opportunities, anywhere, anytime, most of the time, I said yes, even when the opportunity was very odd. For those of you that were here in the mid-90s, and I know a couple of you were, you might remember that I was the director of psychiatric nursing at the time, and I took a position here called the the coordinator of empowerment. Can you imagine? What is that? Okay. And we're still asking ourselves 30 years later what that was, right? But I took that position because for me, it's never been about position. It's never been about title. It's about what could I learn from whatever the opportunity was. And from those 2 years in that position, I learned how to create empowered practice environments. So when fortunately I became the chief nurse years later, I was able to bring that to the community, and together we did that. But that would have never happened if I hadn't said yes to a very odd opportunity. When I took that opportunity, my colleagues just could not believe it. So serendipity plays a great deal and great roles. And my message obviously is to say yes, as Dr. Schuling said, when confronted with opportunities that might not even make sense at the moment. Ask yourselves, what could I learn from that? And how could I apply it? I want to thank Dr. Schuling for a very thoughtful and impressive presentation. I want to thank Dean Hearn and Julie Ishak and the team, the planning teams, for planning the presentation. And I want to thank everybody who's attended here and online. And as always, I want to thank Dr. David Spollinger, who created the lectureship. So with that, thank you all for coming, and have a wonderful day and a wonderful
Pleasure you go.
Oh, I'm not going anywhere. Even when I'm not a dean, I'll still be around.
Right. I know.
Take care. Thanks for doing
Good to
this.
see you.